2001 was WWF's weirdest years ever. With Vince buying off WCW, we all expected, okay, this might be the year that we get WCW versus WWF. And instead, it was like an alliance with WCW and ECW, with Stephanie taking over ECW, Shane taking over WCW, and Vince representing the WWF. So it was basically just the McMahon family drama all over again, which is what we got last year at the McMahon in Every Corner at WrestleMania 2000. And by the end of it, it was just WWF giving one last middle finger to WCW, because none of the alliance were really top tier WCW guys, with the exception of Booker T and DDP. We didn't have NWO, we didn't have Sting, we didn't have Goldberg, Ric Flair. Ric Flair literally showed up the day after Survivor Series, right when the invasion ended, and then the NWO come out like in 2002. Obviously, they wanted to sit out their contract. They didn't want to buy out their contracts. But if they were going to do that, then why didn't they just wait until much later to do the invasion storyline? Like, they should have done it in 2002 if that was the case. But overall, I just think that this show, the wrestling was there. The wrestling was really good. Some stuff was terrible. Though I'll get to it when I get to it. But um, at least they tried to build up new guys. At least I could say that. But really, this wasn't the invasion that you predicted. It was just a weird kind of mix of stuff, and they took advantage of the invasion pay per view making bank. But we end up getting what we get, so let's just talk about it. Edge defeated Lance Storm to become the Intercontinental Champion. This was a big moment for Edge. Obviously, they saw something in Edge that we didn't see yet. But it was actually pretty cool that they were slowly building up Edge into a single star. Too bad his mid card runs were terrible. He really was a great world champion, but he was never a good IC or US champion, or even European to add. I believe he won that one, but yeah, he was never a good mid card champion, if I'm being honest. But this was the start of Edge's singles push, where he would eventually become the rated R superstar. We'll get to that when we get to it, but overall, this match was fine. Lance Storm wasn't really a threat, and even he will admit that. The Dudley Boys and Test versus APA and Spike Dudley. This was pretty much what you thought it was going to be. It was essentially going to be Dudley's versus Spike, but they needed other representatives for the Alliance and the WWF. Test was a random one. Obviously, they had a shitty booking for him, but they could have done something with him. I'm sorry, but he was just no good at freaking being the an alliance guy. They just tried and tried, but they just never worked. And then Spike Dudley and the APA, they weren't really a threat at this point, which is why the Dudleys end up winning. At least the Dudleys kind of made sense joining the alliance since they were ECW guys. But yeah, this match was bad. Tajiri and X-Pac fought for the Cruiserweight and Lightweight Championships. This was just to combine the belts. At this point, the Cruiserweight division was dead. They were just pushing people just for the sake of it. And at least X-Pac won. There's a side of me that kind of wanted Tajiri to win, but they really didn't care about the WCW guys. They really didn't. Chris Jericho versus Rhino. This was the only one with a decent story, where it was really Chris Jericho versus Stephanie McMahon. But they needed someone to fight off Chris Jericho. Obviously, Triple H was hurt, so they got Rhino from ECW. This was a good match, but it was very obvious they wanted to do something else with Chris Jericho and Stephanie. If anything, I'm pretty sure they wanted a mixed tag team match. Maybe Trish and Jericho versus Stephanie and Rhino. That would have been pretty cool, but I'm cool with Rhino and Jericho. They have good chemistry. This was an alright match. Now the first real good match, which was Jeff Hardy versus Rob Van Dam for the Hardcore Championship. This really showcased RVD to be one of the best built guys. He wasn't the best talker, but damn it, RVD was just a legend in the high flying business. So was Jeff Hardy. We didn't know it yet, but Jeff Hardy was going to be a mainstay as a single star down the road. And RVD, we already knew him from his ECW days. He was a legend, and this was a damn good ladder match. One of my favorites for sure. RVD gets the victory, rightfully so, and slowly but surely they start pushing RVD to the top very quick. I mean, I believe in the next pay-per-view he gets a WWF title shot, either that or the previous one. I don't remember, but at one point it's RVD, Kurt Angle, and Stone Cold for the WWF Championship. I remember that. Then we get the worst match of the show: Brothers of Destruction versus Chris Kanyon and DDP. Winner take all, both the WWF and WCW Tag Team Championships. Obviously they wanted to build up the Brothers of Destruction in the Tag Team division, which was a big step down for the Undertaker. I feel like they could have done way more with Kane and the Undertaker, especially during the invasion angle. Around this time, the American Badass, you could tell he was just dying down. Like, he was just getting more serious as far as, like, he was no longer the dead man. His aura was gone. And if I'm being honest, I actually already saw all of the the early 2000s SummerSlams. And I can tell you that Undertaker, as the American Badass, had some of the worst SummerSlam matches, and this was definitely one. The previous one with Kane was bad. Oof, when we get to Test and A-Train, yeah, but this is definitely the worst one, especially the story with DDP stalking Undertaker's wife. I believe they're divorced because now Undertaker's with Michelle McCool. But anyways, the match was Chris Kanyon escapes the cage, and then it just becomes a 2-on-1 handicap with DDP further burying DDP. I don't know what they hated about DDP. He was essentially the people's champion for WCW. If anything, he should have been the one fighting The Rock. Not to say that Booker T wasn't a mainstay, but imagine if we got Harlem Heat versus the Brothers of Destruction. That would have been epic. I don't know what happened to Stevie Ray around this point. I don't know if he was retired or I don't know what happened, but they could have done something else. With the match of the night, hands down, was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle. These two men just beating the crap out of each other, just going at it. It ended up being a DQ finish because Stone Cold ended up attacking the referee. So Kurt Angle wins by DQ. There was back and forth with WCW and WWF referees going back and forth. You know, after Stone Cold betraying the WWF, Kurt Angle was the savior for some reason. And, I mean, as stupid as the story was, the match itself was one of the best, for sure. Kurt Angle makes anything look good. Stone Cold was a great worker. So, yeah, this was hands down the match of the night. And it further pushed for another match down the road. So, at least this continued the story. And then make the story between the two men more interesting as the year went by. Now, if I'm being honest, the only true WWF versus WCW dream match that we got in this entire invasion angle was the main event of SummerSlam 2001, being Booker T versus The Rock. This is the closest we got to a genuine dream match in the Alliance invasion storyline. Booker T was a great worker. We further proved that he was the saving grace of WCW in its dying years. The Rock was The Rock, and we had a great match out of these two. But the ending was kind of stupid. I do like that Shane McMahon is constantly trying to help Booker T win since he was representing the Alliance. That was that good story. And then, but Booker T's ending was dumb. He does a spinneroonie. He turns around into a rock bottom, and that's the end. Rock being the WCW champion was kind of cool, but it was a little bit weird seeing how they managed to do this with the invasion. Overall, this show had some good matches and some good top tier stuff, but it's a really bad built show. And that seems to be the real problem with the show. That's why I'm giving it a B minus. Honestly, pure wrestling was good. There was a god awful match with Brothers of Destruction and DDP and Chris Kanyon, but overall I had myself a good time. Even though the story with the invasion was a huge letdown, but it doesn't take away from how entertaining this show was. The next show is 2002, infamously to many people the greatest SummerSlam of all time. What are my opinions? Find out when that video's up.